This is the coolest show brought to you by Hip Hop Caucuses. Think 100%.
It's the coolest show you know, keep the culture connected. It's the coolest show you know, in your ear, yeah, respected. Expert level information, entertainment, education. Rev Yearwood got you covered as you hit your destination. Climate rules everything around me. Cream. For those who lost focus, close your eyes and just dream. Open your third eye, now the world is your off. Coolest show you know, it's the Hip Hop Caucus.
Hey everybody, welcome to the coolest show. I am Rev Yearwood, your host. And this week, we have a special show. As many of you know, I am a part of the Hip Hop Caucus. And about 10 years ago, we did a compilation album that was around gathering many artists together to do this, one of the first climate albums. And it was amazing. And I want to get into that conversation. One of our producers here at the Coolest Show was also one of the producers on the album H.O.M.E. And so I'm going to come to him real shortly. That is DeJuan Cross. We know him better as Cross. And so, but I want to kind of get into that. This album that we did was a diverse group of leading recording artists, music producers, and songwriters who came together to create the project that we now know as the album H.O.M.E. And H.O.M.E. stands for Heal Our Mother Earth. And artists who were featured on this album included Common, Neo, El Varner, Carmen, Raheem DeVaughn, Crystal Waters, and so many more. The project featured 11 tracks and was released in the fall of 2014 for the People's Climate March, where literally people took the streets in that September to demand world leaders take action on climate. Now, 4 of the records that were original songs, and they included a powerful ballad that was by Raheem DeVaughn called Outer Spaceship, and a hard-hitting rap collaboration called Trouble in the Water between Common and Compton-based artist Kamasi and the other producer, Malik Youssef. The album also included covers of some of the most significant environmental theme songs of all time, such as Michael Jackson's Earth Song, covered by Neo, Marvin Gaye's Mercy, Mercy Me, covered by Anthony Smith, and Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi, covered by Carmen. Now, not every song was directly speaking to environmentalism, but every song spoke to the themes of our home and the future for our children, such as moving covers of Which Side Are You On, which was covered by El Varner, and Children of the Ghetto, covered by Crystal Waters, Jessica Caramore, and Candace Glover, performed an emotional cover of One of Us, and Neo's song singer, The Amazing Chocolate, answered the questions covered in a cover that was by Everything. So, the album H.O.M.E. was a soundtrack for the climate movement. Now, I want to go back a little bit in time. I want to make sure you understand that in September 21st of 2014, the People's Climate March was taking place. And at that time, we were preparing for COP20, which was going on in Lima, Peru. And this was the decision now to create this album, H.O.M.E. And it was released actually in November 14th of 2014. The first single from the album was Mercy, Mercy Me by recording artist Anthony Smith, which we actually released in time for the Climate March in September 20th, 2014. That song was so powerful, Mercy, Mercy Me by Anthony Smith, that Bill McKibben called Anthony Smith the voice of the climate movement. But this is the thing. We began to work hard to get ready for the Paris Agreement, COP21, and we began to use this album because at that time, the following year, and that was back then in 2015, would mark the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. We began to come together to use the album H.O.M.E. to then move things forward from the French Quarter to Paris. As we all know, in the Paris Agreement, that would be the pivotal moment that we all now look to as the thing that sustains us for an agreement on climate. But let's get back to H.O.M.E. So with me here today, I have none other than DeJuan Cross, one of the producers of H.O.M.E. Cross, my brother, how are you feeling?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing great, Rev. Today, as we're recording this, is literally my 10th year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
This was the day that I flew to LA to start working on home.
That's amazing.
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Now let's get into the album. So let's
Hmm.
start with actually some of these songs. So one of the things
Hmm.
here that leads into this, I mentioned the original song that was the first single, and everybody knows. So people tell people what that means when people say you release a single from the
Hmm.
album. What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar, just with that process, as you as they call marketing an album, a entire project, you try to go with a song that's on the project that kind of encapsulates the whole story, the whole identity of that project, a song that you will feel that's strong to just be a good representation for the project as a whole. And Mercy Mercy Me being a classic song, by the great late Marvin Gaye. We felt like Antonique voice, would be perfect for like more of a newer age sound. I mean, when you speak of these records, that's the one thing. Some of them are like classic songs, right? And so it's like, can I really remake Mercy Mercy Me? Like, no. But we have to, take our creativity and make it for today's times, because a lot of times what sounded great at one point, it might not connect with the youth so much. So when we choosing Mercy Mercy Me, we wanted to give it a new spin on it, something that gave it a little bit more energy, and Anthony was the perfect artist to match that vibe.
So that single from the album, which was the cover of Mercy Mercy Me, by recording artist Anthony Smith, was actually released on September 20th of 2014. And that was important because that became the anthem
Mhm.
for the People's Climate March on September 21st of 2014, where hundreds of thousands of people across 150 countries participated in protests on that day in their collective action of the People's Climate March. Let's listen to a little bit of Mercy, Mercy Me by Anthony Smith.
Oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be now. Where did all the blue skies go? Poison is the wind that blows from the north and southeast. Oh, mercy, mercy me.
Cross. That was Mercy, Mercy Me by Anthony Smith. And then right after that, then we began to release the album, which the album
Mhm.
came out on November 14th.
Yeah.
Now, that's almost about, I guess, about 2 months later. So,
Mhm.
what was happening in those 2 months to get the rest of the album either done, or was it just a matter of just that letting that first song by Anthony kind of ride and then getting ready to release it all later?
Yeah, it was a few things. I mean, during the whole process, I feel like Mercy Mercy Me was one of the final songs that we produced. Actually. Uh yeah, that was actually one of the finals. Like, we started it, but then we went back and completed it. And so once we finished that, up until that November release date, they were just tweaking, meaning just going listen to the songs over and over again, making sure that all the mixing, the levels, it sounds good, it's true to what we want it to be. Just so that when people hear it, they can enjoy it, and it sounds like a professional, produced product. And so yeah, that's pretty much the process. From once you record the songs, the artists are back out there doing their thing, and then so we're in the studios just still, like, adding more music, and like I said, just running it through that whole process of just getting it prepared for release.
Mm. Now, four of the songs on the album Home
Hmm.
are original songs.
Hmm.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
One of those songs is Raheem by our dear brother, Raheem Devon, called Outer Spaceship.
Yeah.
What's your recollection of that song?
Oh yeah. Amazing song. I love that song. It's one of the final songs on there. Raheem did a great job. That song was written by Malik Youssef and Ryan McDermott,
Mm,
and produced by myself, Ryan, Malik, and Malcolm Tariq, and my brother Waves. Rest in peace, Malcolm. Malcolm was also a guy that was heavily involved, excuse me, on the project, the whole entire home project, from pretty much top to bottom. He's one of my mentors, even in this process. But Malcolm passed away a few years ago, and so
mm.
I just want to definitely like just pay him his respects, lift him and his family up, and just just honor his legacy. But Malcolm was definitely a big part of this process too, and we produced that song "Outer Spaceships" at the studio. We started at Ryan McDermott's house, and then and like a lot of the songs, we started at Ryan's house, and then we took them over to the studio, and added more music. After we wrote the song, produced the song, we sent it to Raheem, and then Raheem loved it. He loved it. Malik was like, getting Raheem to actually, record other people's work, because him being a prolific writer and artist himself, so that was a good testament to the work that we had, done, because he was excited about it. So it was great to hear him on it once it was completed. Me and Malcolm mixed the song, did some arrangements and things like that. So yeah, that was a great process, and just a great thing to be a part of. Great song to be a part of.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, to one of our producers, we want to say rest in peace, rest in power to Malcolm. And with that, let's hear a little bit from Raheem Devon, Outer Spaceship.
Our spaceship, get us out of here, 'cause I can't take this atmosphere. The air is dangerous, water is unclear. So how we made this? Will someone take this? I'ma wanna come home. I'ma wanna come home. You know I miss you.
That was Raheem Devon, Outer Spaceship. But one of the most popular songs on is another original song. Actually becomes people actually think the album sometimes is called Trouble in the Water and not the home. They actually think this is the song which actually most people refer to when they listen to the album Home. And that was the song between Compton-based artist Kamasi and Malik Youssef. Talk about that for a little bit, Cross. What was this song becomes almost like the
Hmm.
pinnacle of the
Hmm.
album. What
Yeah.
goes into, and obviously because of Common, but why is this song so special?
Well, of course. Trouble in the Water. I mean, before we even get to who's featured on the song, the background of what the song is about. In 2014, there was, and still to this day, and there's
Flint water
been water
crisis.
crisis. Yeah,
Hmm.
water crisis. We was talking about Flint, but there's just so many places, right? And so we were focusing on at that time Flint, and we were trying to bring awareness to for folks that, and let me just give a caveat. Going into this project, this was my first time um even participating in something of this magnitude, as far and with this subject matter. I'm
Mm.
being a producer, musician, a writer. I come from just music where to enjoy, to uplift, but I had never participated in a project that was solely based on the empowerment and the upliftment of my people. And so let me just give that caveat. So a lot of while we were creating the songs were all learning experiences for the all of us, right? And so Trouble in the Water was one of those things. When you go into the studio and you feel like, okay, today I'm making a beat, but you have to understand the gravity of what you're creating. Like, we knew maybe for 2 days that Common was coming in. We spoke about the song Trouble in the Water, what that meant, what we wanted to convey. And so when you hear the music and you hear all of that, that's kind of it's like emergency, you know what I'm saying? It's like get your attention, right? And so um I had the luxury, like I said, of producing that with my brothers Malcolm, Waves, and also, I recorded the record, recorded Malik, recorded Common, was there during their writing session, you know, with them two in the room, it was like watching two master ninjas kind of like spar, and it was just amazing to kind of see that how they wrote the record, and then just to record it, and I was excited, you know what I'm saying? So it was like whatever I need to do, I'm here for that. So um and then later on, Kumasi came, laid his verse down, recorded that, amazing, represented very well. And I just think that when you hear these songs, they're so the stories behind them of how we create them is one thing, but also the education of what we're actually talking about. Even in Trouble in the Water, Malik, used a bar about fracking, you know what I'm saying? And at that time, when Liz from the Hip Hop Caucus said, "Hey, we was talking about fracking and stuff," and most people in there are like, "Okay, what in the world is fracking?" Like, you know what I'm saying? What are we talking about? Like, how do we incorporate this into a song so it sounds cool? You know what I mean? So that was for me a lot of the challenge was to take these topics that aren't normally brought up in the community and not make them sound, like corny or cheerleady. You know what I'm saying? I want them to fit into everyday vocabulary and to just to be a part of everyday understanding and knowledge. And so I think that's what we were trying to convey with Trouble in the Water and just the bulk of the album, just trying to make it relatable, have these serious topics in there, but also not, scare people away from these topics because,
Mm.
as serious as they are, like how we talk about here on the Coolest Show, it gets deep, you know what I'm saying? So you, and in songs you have a hard thing where where you don't want to try to give everything because it's a whole project, so you got to you got to give a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. You got to entertain, and so that's so at the same time, so it's a fine balance of us entertaining and also us educating. So that's what I hope people hear when they hear songs like Trouble in the Water.
Wow. Well, with that, let's actually listen to a little bit of Trouble in the Water. And now we're only playing bits and pieces of the album. But if you go to the coolestshow.com, the website, we're going to have you post up a link so you can hear the entire album at your leisure. But right now, listen to a little bit of Trouble in the Water, which was done by Common, Malik Yusef, Kamase, also featuring and Fresh, Chocolate, and Lacey K.
Water moves, new world order rules. Through hurricanes, the pain is made audible. Sound waves, shot town graves dug deep. Water dirty like the police that flood streets. Blood on the beach, sandstorms on the streets. A man's form can be transformed with the heat of the moment. We think our opponent is overseas, but we messing with Mother Nature's ovaries. It's a cruel winter, summer don't know itself. I say get green, but all niggas...
Staying with the originals in that process, because there were 4 on the album Home, Heal Our Mother Earth. The other original that's also very powerful is a song, again, by Malik Yusef, featuring Ryan McDermott, Hassan, and Casey Joe. And that song is Always. So let's hear a little bit of Always from Malik Yusef, Ryan McDermott, and Hassan.
Holy Ghost fire indeed, our spark riders. Shark biter, bigs, dark lighter. We the resistance, ain't no rebel at your base. And you don't want no trouble, your girl don't want no trouble. Cause she all about that bass. Flow so hands on, she all about that lace. Stars we land on, we all about a space. We found the loophole, carbon neutral. I'm in that karma ride and I let the drama slide.
As you listen to Always in this song actually is actually very much like a ballad. What went into creating this song that we just heard?
Yeah, shout out to, like you mentioned, Malik again, Hassan. Hassan's amazing producer, artist. He's still out there, running around, getting it in right now. So shout out to Hassan. I haven't seen him in a few years, but I definitely have been seeing him online and stuff doing his thing. And shout out to Casey Joe. So with that, Hassan produced that record. That was the one record that I wasn't in the studio for, but I did mix it, so I do understand like the process of how it happened. But yeah, so this song is special because we were at the deadline. So when you mentioned what is going on, between that time of the single release and all of that, this was one of the last songs done. Also, it was we were actually in two different studios at one point. We were mixing and post producing. And post producing means just adding sounds if we need to re-record parts that may not have been the best takes or whatever. So we're post producing and mixing in one studio, and Malik and Hassan are in another studio. Finishing up couple of records too. So they would finish, so they would create finished records, send them to us. We would post produce, mix, and then it was like an assembly line. We just two different locations though. So with that song, so that was one of those ones. I knew about the song, so when I heard it, I liked it. I felt like it fit. It was different. If a lot of people who don't understand like the backgrounds of all these different artists at that time, Malik was running around working with Kanye West a lot. I was also at the time. And so that sound right there was kind of an ode to kind of that good music sound. Like we say the ballad, there were a lot of like those type of records that we did floating around. So when I heard it, I immediately understood what the aim was. And always is just to let people know that, hey, we're always here, we're always fighting, we're always in the midst of this battle, but we're gonna always thrive, we're gonna always make it, we're always gonna survive. So that's just a little, background on what that song is about, and how it just came to be.
Wow. Well, the last of the four originals is actually the first song on the album, and there's a lot that goes into when you open up your first song, like your opening batter.
Mhm.
And that song is Spaceship Odyssey 2000,
Mhm.
again, by
Mhm.
Malik Yusef, Lacey K, and so many others. What goes
Yeah.
into Spaceship Odyssey 2000?
The good thing about creating this home project was that there was a lot of community created through it. It was, for me, um my well, I had been to LA before, but that was my first time being, sent for, I guess you would say, like
Hmm.
flown to work on a project and things like that. And so through that, one thing we were able to do was bring a lot of folks together, and to play the project throughout the time that we were recording it. And with being producers, we don't, any talent that's around, we're gonna figure it out. Okay, so
Mm.
um
What
and
does
this
that
is,
mean?
and meaning that if you're talented, then I'll figure out how to help you utilize your talent if you're not sure how to do that,
Mm.
because that's what my job as a producer is to produce, it's to create a finalized product, right? And so I can look around and say, okay, well, I don't have all the resources that I might necessarily have, but I can take these resources and get the same result. That's kind of how we look at things. And so, but even with talent, so and when I mean about creating community, we have like listening sessions where we bring people in to listen to the project while we're making it. But in those sessions, the songs aren't complete. So we're like, hey, let's you sing, you do this, so we'll find people in the room that have talent, right? Somebody might be able to play keys, piano, things like that. So we'll invite the community in to, to utilize their talent, a part of our projects also. So that's what I mean about, we'll figure out the talent, we'll utilize it in the proper way, and also in ways that sometimes people don't even realize, because a lot of times in these processes you have people that are veterans that have been doing it for a while, and you have people that are sort of new, right? And I would say Spaceship Odyssey was a good combination of that. So sometimes you have people that are there like, okay, it could be a little nervous, you know what I'm saying? And so
Hmm.
you have a director like Malik, producer, director's kind of the same understanding with music and director for a film. So you have someone that can say, hey, you do this part, now say it like this or do it like that, and then they're like, oh wow, that sounds really good. So it helps them build up confidence, it helps them just expand, just all of the things that they have in their tool belt. So that's what that is. Spaceship Odyssey, again, was doing that kind of one studio, second studio uh transaction when we were just mixing and post producing. And so uh that was one of the songs that was kind of combined with the group to do like kind of like it's more like a community base where you hear more voices that aren't maybe a part of the whole project, but we did want to get some folks in on a couple of songs that have been a part of the process that kind of seen it and just, incorporate youth and older what do you say, seasoned veterans alike.
Definitely, we had some seasoned veterans, but I will say, Spaceship Odyssey was what is actually one of my favorites of the originals. And so,
Word.
without further ado, let's listen to a little bit of Spaceship Odyssey 2000.
How much is a Bugatti? How much is a Bugatti? Well, I could probably pay it. Well, I could probably pay it. And how much is a rocket? Well, how much is a rocket? And how far can we take it? Well, how far can we take it? My spaceship, in my outer spaceship, yeah, riding in the spaceship.
So that concludes the originals on the album, songs that were written by the producers and not covers. But let's get to some of the covers. The covers actually had a huge impact. At the time of the release of the H.O.M.E album, Heal on Mother Earth, it actually became one of the most important ways for people to actually use their voice. One of the amazing things at that time, the album H.O.M.E helped bring awareness and move over, at that time, 60,000 people to action who downloaded the album during that time frame and to use it particularly to show that they had voices in support of the proposed Clean Power Plan at the time, which was designed to dramatically cut dangerous carbon pollution from our nation's power plants. That obviously has continued on to a modern day EPA, where we are today. And so people using their culture and this music was an amazing fashion. But one of the links to this cross was that they wanted to connect to the days of before in the climate movement and songs that had been used during those days from the first Earth Day back in 1970, before and during the creation of the EPA. And so part of that was these set of songs, which were all covers. And so one of those songs that comes there actually is by the phenomenal and beautiful and powerful Crystal Waters, who sang Children of the Ghetto. What went into that song, Cross?
Yes. So this is the fun part too. The covers are fun because you have to take, like I mentioned earlier with Mercy Mercy Me, you take, something that's a classic and then you give your own twist on it. You also have to understand, okay, if Crystal Waters is going to be covering this song, understanding her sound, her music. So we did something that was a little bit different. And thank you, Miss Crystal Waters, because she was so understanding of us trying, it different. It wasn't necessarily the sound that she was normally doing, which is, a little bit more house, what I'm saying? It was kind of house, but it was very slow. And that's just because, like, again, understanding that to how to connect the past and the present, seeing where music was and where it was going, I just already understood, like, no, this is going to make a bigger impact because people need to understand and hear what you're saying. And we're still gonna give it that. It's still like the same tempos. It just got a different type of bounce that she wasn't used to. But when she did it, it was amazing. She loved it. And it's one of my favorite songs that we were able to do, because shout out to Miss Crystal Waters, because like I said, she was so understanding, and us being able to give that song a different spin. Like I said, it's still one of my favorite songs on the project as a whole. Like I like that song. Every time I hear it, I'm like, hey, it's just, it was something that I created. Like I started creating prior to coming out for H.O.M.E. So when I was just going through ideas and played it, and they were like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then we just kind of forged the Children of the Ghetto onto the music. Like it was real creative how we did a lot of these songs, because if you hear like a lot of the older references of them, we tried to go the total opposite way. Like we didn't want to sound like the actual song. So that was our vision for these covers, was to give them their own identity and to also marry them to the artists that will be performing them.
Well, for folks who don't know, Crystal Waters was one of my favorite musicians out there. If you haven't heard da da dee da da dum, then you're missing something from listening to Crystal Waters in a club or anywhere. But this is Crystal Waters, Children of the Ghetto.
Children
going through the album Home and looking at the significance of that time frame. We are going now through the covers. And one of the covers there that is such a powerful cover throughout the history of the movement, which literally states it all in the frame of the song, was by L. Varner. Which side are you on? And so, Cross, this song means so much to both the progressive and the climate movement because there's so many times in which we have to figure out, are you on the right side or are you on the other side? Are you for good trouble or are you just causing trouble?
Right.
So talk about this song, Which Side Are You On by L. Varner.
Shout out to L. Varner. L. Varner was amazing, is amazing, but at that time we was recording one of my favorite sessions. L was cool. And so we just hung out, we spoke about it, we produced the music, right? Pr- the, just was able to talk to L. The one of the best parts of this whole story is the actual performance in DC at the Howard Theater, because at some point in the song I had to rearrange the whole song. I was listening to the song one day before the release. I was just listening to the song. I said, "Oh," and so I remember calling the attorney because it's already a written song. I'm like, "Well, can I rearrange the song?" They was like, "Yeah, you can do whatever. It's a derivative." I'm like, okay. So I went in there and rearranged the song, and then I remember I hadn't seen Elle. Like, has Elle heard the song? She's supposed to go on in maybe like 20 minutes, right? And so I'm like, "Has Elle heard the song?" They're like, "No, she's in her dressing room. I don't think she heard it." So I went down there, and she's in makeup and all this stuff, and I played a song for her while she's sitting there. And so I'm like, but she's like talking to her team and all this stuff is going on. I'm like, is she even listening? And then she's like, "Oh, that sounds amazing. You did that?" I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, that's great. I love that. Just text it to me real quick and let me listen to it." And I'm like, "Psh." So she listened to it, 20 minutes, nailed the new arrangement. Hadn't heard it before
Wow.
that. And
Wow.
I was like, see, that's professionalism right there. Like that's somebody that, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to El Varner. I mean, that was great. I remember her just playing her guitar out there in LA. Outside, we were just out there just vibing, talking, whatever. So great times, great stories, great memories.
Wow. Well, this is Which Side Are You On by L. Varner.
My daddy was a miner, and I'm on miner's side. He'll be with you, fellow workers, until this battle's won. So which side are you on?
So we've had a number of different groups you listen to, different people. Some of them, as you know, like Common and Neo and Crystal Waters and El Varner, were kind of famous at the time. And some of the artists, as Cross has mentioned, were, up and coming and kind of just, as he had to say, we had to just make sure and fit in, kind of getting where you fit in and figuring out their talents. And so
Mhm.
artists in this industry, you don't know actually who will kind of go to the next level. And this group was actually a group. It was an American pop duo by Amy Renee Noonan and Nick Noonan as the group called Carmen. They actually back then had just been signed to Epic Records, but now since then they are now the chart smashing world superstars Carmen group. And so at the time, people don't know they are on the album Home, and they sang Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell. So, Cross, now that you know that Carmen has gone through the stratosphere and they sang Big Yellow Taxi, what are your thoughts looking back on that 10 years ago?
Yeah. At that time, I feel like shout out to Nick and Amy. Super talented. I mean, super talented. And we probably produced Big Yellow Taxi probably like 3 times before we got to this version.
Mm.
Um, I remember I left for like 2 days. I went to like Vegas. Like at this point, I probably had been working for like 3 or 4 months. So I was like, I needed a break. So I remember I went to Vegas, and then Malik was calling me like, "Hey, Nick and Amy are actually going to come to the studio." So I rushed back. So I remember like Nick started playing the piano, and then once I heard those first notes, it all started to come to me, started to make sense, and then we just Amy recorded to just the piano. And then so after Nick played piano, Amy recorded. We went back and produced all the rest of the music and sounds and mix and arrange it. And that's one of my favorite mixes, like just how it sounds like on the project. Like as far as like the song that I feel like we mixed. The sound sounds classic. That Big Yellow Taxi version is that song. I feel like I'm proud of it.
Yeah, no, this is one of those songs. So I always have the pleasure listening to this song by Joni Mitchell, but this rendition by now, the world, this chart pop in Carmen, Big Yellow Taxi.
They paved paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put
We
up
almost
a
come to the end of the album. We just got a few more songs to cover. This was just a wonderful project. This artist is like one of my favorite people in the world, not just an artist, one of the people in the world, and that's Chocolate. And Chocolate, who's actually on other songs in the album, who actually does, I mentioned before, she's in Trouble in the Water. She's in just some other different pieces because her voice is so powerful. But this was her song on the album. So speak about Everything by Chocolate Cross.
Shout out to Chocolate. So this is funny because this is how Chocolate and ours like, relationship, friendship, all that good great stuff began, right? And so um I was sitting in the room. It's a picture. I have a picture. I'll send this to Antonio so he can put it on the at the video of this. But there's a picture. I'm sitting in the room, I'm working, and it's like last final hours. Chocolate comes in the door, and at this point, like no one's messing, like no one's talking to me because it's like two people beside me. I'm just barking out orders. Hey, I need this. I need guitar and this. So Chocolate comes in, smiling, and I'm like, okay, who's that? And she said, hey, Malik Yusef sent me over here, and I was like, okay, and she needed to record a song, and I was like, oh man, her song, Everything. And she said, well, I know how to record myself and I know how to edit. And I said, you know how to use Pro Tools? And she said, yeah. She became my best friend instantly, right there. I said, oh, you can help. Remember earlier, the talent, okay, I got you. I know. So she did her song. I said, if you could just edit your vocals, shout out to Chocolate. Chocolate has the engineering credit on the H.O.M.E album also for her project, for her record. That's why this is amazing, because you're seeing people go outside of what you would normally think is their wheelhouse to get it done, right? And so that was the one thing that I was like, wow. So Chocolate edits her song. I did not go back. Then I can post produce it. Shout out to my boy Dunlap, because he actually produced on everything. He produced everything. Also Dunlap exclusive, Grammy award winning producer. Like Lecrae and a lot of artists. But shout out to Dunlap, because he actually, and I brought Dunlap in. That was one of my homies that I met years and years and years and years ago. He's from Chattanooga, Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? And I met him coming in trying to cut grass, and I'm like, hold on, you make music? He's like, yeah. Took him to the studio. So yeah, shout out to Chocolate.
Yeah, no. Chocolate has been with Hip Hop Caucus and been on the bus tours and just been fighting for the people. And with that, gotta say, man, here is Chocolate singing Everything.
In everything, I see everything. In everything, I feel everything. In everything. 'Cause everything.
Well, we're down to the last two songs. And I will say this, that if I had to put up the singers on the album H.O.M.E in a versus against any singers in the world, I'm going to tell you, I think that the singers who are on this album can get it, because between Chocolate and Elle Varner and Crystal Waters and Anthony Smith, and without a doubt, literally Candace Glover, who was the winner of the 12th season of American Idol. So we literally have an American Idol singers, and without a doubt, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite poets, Jessica Caremore. Oh man, to put them this actually is, I think, my favorite song. This is a song that I listen to this day that actually helps motivate me and keeps me going. Cross, this is One of Us. Talk about One of Us by Candace Glover and Jessica Caremore.
I love this song too. This was another testament to just having amazing people and talent. Candace Glover, amazing, so sweet, so kind. She came out to, work on the project with us, and she's one of those artists that I remember, like we recorded the song to a one beat, but by the time it was done, we had completely flipped it on his head, and so she recorded, a part of it in the studio, but that same session when I just mentioned Chocolate coming is when I was actually finishing that song. Is when that's the song I was finishing when Chocolate walked in on me. That's funny. Another, like I said, again, another great classic song that we just wanted to give our own touch, our own flavor, and I feel like we did a really, really good job. That's a really creative song. And sometimes, I haven't heard all of them like I don't listen to them all the time, but when I go back and listen to them, I'm like, wow, these are really good songs. And it just reminds me just of the creative people, of the camaraderie, of just the time that we were together, that we made these songs possible.
Well, on that note, this is One of Us by Candace Glover and Jessica Caremore.
What if God was one of us? Just like one of us. Just stranger, one of us. Trying to make his way home. Make his way.
Well, we're at the last song, and I want to let this last song play out at the very end. So I'm going to have Cross say his words and let the music take us. So, Cross, this last song is very special for many, many reasons. This last song is probably one of the most significant environmental theme songs of all time by Michael Jackson's Earth Song, and it's covered by Neo and Sona Ray. Now, in this song, which is interesting, is that the Hip Hop Caucus have been talking to Michael Jackson literally about doing some climate work together. And then he passed. And so that was a tough thing at that moment. But also, one of the fun things on this song is that Neo is also the uncle of your youngest son, which is also very fun. So this is definitely, you said what? Yeah, your only son. Yeah, your youngest child and your only son, in that. But this was also a family matter. So talk about Earth Song for us.
Yeah, no, for sure. Shout out to Liam. That's my son. He's 12. And yeah, when I think Malik had said something to me about possibly getting Neo, and I was like, oh, okay, So I just like I did what anybody would do. I reached out to his mom. Because I felt like, well, this is nonprofit. I mean, I could have just called him, but I felt like, well, if we can just tie the nonprofits together in some type of way, then that can get it done without having to go through the labels, right? So that was kind of my way of circumventing the record labels. It's called Mom, right? And so she was like, yeah, fine. To have Neo sing Michael Jackson's Earth Song was just like a great tribute to Mike, because I know, and the influence that Michael Jackson's had on all of us, but especially artists like Neo. So for him to be able to cover that song and to do it so well, and then again to actually perform it at the show at the Howard Theater, to follow up to support the project, that was amazing. Shout out to Neo, shout out to Sana, and like that's one of the most fun songs we worked on. I feel like we tried to put all the sounds, elephants. We tried to incorporate. We went outside and got sand, and we just tried to make that song natural. So we put a lot of elements into that that we felt like would be natural and earth-like. So yeah, I love that record.
Before we play that, thank you. You've been listening to DeJuan Cross, Grammy-nominated producer, also one of the producers for this show, The Coolest Show, as well as one of the producers of now what has made history, the album H.O.M.E, Heal on Mother Earth, which now becomes such a huge part of climate history and climate activism. So, Cross, thank you so much for all you've given to this process, this project, and to the movement. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And I just wanted to say, when we did the H.O.M.E project, and when I flew out there to do it, I didn't there was no promises, there was nothing, right? I didn't get paid to do it. It was something that I believed in, at that time. and I still do, you know. And a part of it was, you know, for the love of my people. At this point, I'm fortunate enough to call you Rev, you know what I'm saying, like one of my mentors, my brother. And I think that, I don't know if you remember, well, yeah, I don't know if you remember, but I hadn't met you up until DC, and I feel like at that time, all I wanted to do is meet you. I just wanted to be like, Rev, are you proud? Like, are you happy? You know, and that meant a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like, that meant a lot, and it still does. You know what I'm saying? It still does. So yeah, I always want to use my talents, my gifts as a way to uplift and support. You know what I'm saying? And so projects like Home, Coolest Show. Even, you know, I worked on podcasts and I worked on documentaries with the Hip Hop Caucus, all kind of things. So I just really appreciate, you know, the platforms for artists and creatives like myself, to be able just to express, you know, our talents, our gifts, and to be able to, you know, just to be able to collaborate and to form a community and to, you know, be the example, you know what I'm saying, for people that want to do these things, and you know, they don't know how, they don't, you know, holler at us. We can definitely give you some background, and we can give you some insight, and we're here to help, here to support. So I always want to just let folks know that, you know, this music, this, it's always been bigger than me, and I'm here for service. And so um I just appreciate everybody who was a part. Again, rest in peace to my brother Malcolm. He was a big part of this project, big part of my life. I just really want to make sure that, you know, his name is lifted, Malik Youssef, and my boy Wave Steve.
Nah, thank you, Cross, man. You are a blessing to the caucus, to the movement, and thank you for this bit of history. I am Rev Yearwood, your host of The Coolest Show, and this is our last song to be played from the H.O.M.E album, Here on Mother Earth, by Michael Jackson, Rest in Power, sung by Soda and Neo, Earth Song. Stay safe, y'all, and all power to the people.